Welcome to the Own Your Best Life podcast. I'm May Emson, your host, leadership and mindset coach. Here, we talk all things spiritual, mindset, business, leadership, and wellness for the modern seeker who wants to align their life with purpose and inspiration. We'll cover career changes, stress management, meditation, energy, intuition, and more. Each episode holds spiritual and practical tools to help you live a life of your wildest dreams without getting burnt out along the way. Ready to live a life on your own terms? This is the Own Your Best Life podcast. Welcome, friends, to episode number 231 of the Own Your Best Life podcast. Whether you are burning out, maybe you're bored, or you are just plain exhausted, you might start wondering if corporate life is for you. What about entrepreneurial life? You don't know if the grass is greener on the other side. And what if you did something more entrepreneurial, or you just left your current role for a different one or for a different organization? Would things actually change? So today's podcast is for the professional who has been on the professional track, doing the corporate hustle, and wondering if this is really it. So something that might surprise you about me is that I never wanted to become an entrepreneur and have my own business, which I do now. And I've never had these dreams of wanting to run this business or make all the calls. I didn't have these aspirations of leading everything, and I didn't want that responsibility that came with it. Why then have I built this business that keeps thriving and continuing year after year? And it all started off as the how behind how I could actually do the coaching work. I remember when I was pivoting careers, looking around, interviewing for roles within the company I was already at, I was trying to transfer into work that would get me closer to coaching and human development. I had completed my coaching certification at Columbia. I had figured out that I wanted to do coaching, and that was where I did my MBA, was at Columbia too, and it truly felt like it was a calling, doing this kind of work. And if you didn't know, I had a wake-up call that changed everything. It was the sudden death number 3, third one, that reminded me that time was not owed to me and that I didn't feel like I was living a life that I knew was possible. I remember thinking I wasn't having the impact that I wanted to have on the world, and I didn't even know what my gifts were. And I say this because I know that sometimes it looks like people were just born knowing exactly what they are going to do with their lives, and that is not true. Everyone, including myself, has a different journey of ups and downs to discovering why they're here and what they want from life. So if you are a spiritual achiever trying to figure out what the heck am I going to do next, that is okay. So when I made these big shifts to actually do the work that I thought I was here to do, my ups and downs was the feeling of figuring it out and then feeling like I hit a big dead end. It was like, oh, I figured out the thing. And then it was, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do it. Or, oh my gosh, I know that something has to change, but I don't know what to change or how to change it. So this is the work I do because I've lived it. And I know what it feels like very tangibly, and I know what's on the other side as well. The thing is, though, when I was hitting all these dead ends at my corporate job, I didn't give up. I started a business not thinking it would be what it became. And I say that also because sometimes we think we have to have every single thing planned out to the end of time to know why we should just start something to begin with. But what we have realized, and I think you've probably realized in your life, is that you have taken so many unexpected turns. And if you didn't at least start, you probably wouldn't have come half as far as where you are today. So the reason I did it in terms of starting a business was because getting paid for coaching hours was just part of the Columbia Executive Coaching Program certification that I was taking. So then, only after I started the path of coaching, getting paid, a switch flipped. I wanted to go all in on the business and out of the corporate world. I heard all of the voices and mentors saying, burn the boats, entrepreneurship is the only way. And it wasn't just about coaching anymore. It was about being able to do it my way and being more creative. It became about financial freedom, or this idea of really building something completely your own. At the same time, I kept thinking about how could I make it work where I was. I had all the connections, I had the industry knowledge, and the functional knowledge about sales, marketing. What do I do with all of that expertise? And while I thought that I should have enough experience to make a role switch within the same company, I still kept hitting dead ends. I would interview for a role, then it would be put on hold. They weren't hiring anymore. And I was looking for things that were just somewhat tangential to the coaching work that I wanted to do. So it was transformation work. Some of it was coaching work. And just when I thought I was exhausting all possibilities, I remember getting coached and getting to the point where I was telling the coach, hey, I don't know what other possibilities there are to do this work. And at that moment, I thought to myself, well, what other creative possibilities are there? And I made it a question. And often we stop at our limiting beliefs. We stop at our circumstances, like the rejections. We stop at the lack of progress. We stop at the feeling that it will never work. Yet, when we ask a question about it, something changes. It went from there's no possibilities, a statement, to what other creative possibilities are there? And that one question brought to mind this one other person I hadn't talked to yet. And she was leading a team where she had someone in a sales training role. I hadn't considered it before, as that role was a level below where I was currently at. But I decided to treat it as an informational interview. Why not talk to her, ask her about what the work is like? So I did. And in that conversation, I found that there was a role and they were up-leveling it. And I wouldn't have known any of this if I hadn't talked to her, nor if I hadn't done that work of turning a limiting belief into a question. And the rest is history. I have been in the role for almost 6 years now and have expanded it way beyond what the original job description was, which is never just the job description that you get. And it's become a dream role where I do both sales and leadership training for a socially responsible consumer goods company. And all while I am building this soul-led business focused on spiritual achievement, right? So both. Here I am doing both corporate work and entrepreneurial work after thinking that I had to choose one or the other, which is why I want to bust that myth that there's only fulfillment in one thing or the other. I want to also share some ideas for what you can do today to understand how to love what you're doing even more if you're feeling stuck but not sure where to go next. These are going to be several different things that I'm going to be sharing. So get ready. The first one is a break in reality that I want to offer you. And this is that your happiness and your fulfillment is not in your job. You thought maybe that you had to make your job and your work your entire personality. I know I did. It offered a place where I could be challenged, I could find community, I could be rewarded, I could build a business, I could do all of the things. Yet spiritually, we know we're not here to just do a job. We're here to be humans, helping, connecting with the world around us. And sometimes that happens through our work. And other times it's the way we interact with our family, our friends, our neighbors, and who we are as human beings in all of the tiny interactions and ways of existing. It's how we spend time in nature. How do we tend to our own corners of the universe? When you make your job mostly responsible for your happiness, it's easier to start hating your job or become burnt out from work. With every up and down in your work life, you get sick with stress, anxiety, physically suffering because things aren't working the way you had planned. It becomes hard to separate our achievements from our work. It becomes hard to rest. You take things personally when your boss is demeaning or demoralizing with their feedback or their lack of leadership. And when your work is responsible for how good you feel about yourself, you will have a hard time making the appropriate decisions for when to leave or stay. For example, you might stay because you think that not sticking it out makes you a quitter, and you're not a quitter. This is a very common thought, and this identification of who we are with our work is helpful and can be helpful when it calls us up to be a version of ourselves that we think will have more joy, determination, love, compassion. But what happens when it asks us to be a version of ourselves that isn't necessary or helpful? If we identify with our work and we maybe stay in situations where it only perpetuates cycles of mistreatment, and we could have found something better earlier on elsewhere. The other example is when people tend to leave jobs often and quickly. You leave because things aren't great, but you haven't yet figured out if you are repeating the same problems everywhere you go. And this is when you find the grass isn't any greener. Maybe it's a different problem with similar problems. Why does everywhere you go have an issue? And that's when you start thinking, whether I start my own business or go to another role or company, I don't know that it will get better. And so ultimately, when work is everything, you have a hard time making choices about what to do next that will lead to you truly being more fulfilled or happier. You can predict fulfillment, and I have a whole method for how, but it is not just solely based on your job. And you're allowed to get fulfillment and joy from other things not related to how good you are at things. Things like just playing again as an adult, being in nature, hanging out with people, talking about deep things, singing, dancing, and just overall being yourself and having a good time and learning and helping others along the way. The second myth that I want to share with you is this idea. A lot of people believe that you have to suffer financially in order to be happy. So if you want to be more successful, you won't be happy or you won't be fulfilled. And you're thinking, well, my job pays me the money that I need to be fulfilled outside of work or take trips, do cool things with my family or people that I love. So why would I leave something where I'm making good money? And you will answer this question for yourself. I'm not going to tell you that you need to leave your job that makes good money. Yet I want you to understand some more ideas about money and fulfillment that can expand your thinking about what's possible so that you can hold more money more easily. So there is an amount that you need to make the life you want to happen viable. Yet, so many studies have shown that the real number you need that impacts your fulfillment is much lower than what most of us high achievers are making today. Research has shown that what truly impacts fulfillment is your ability to spend time doing what you want to do. Think about that. Time doing what you want to do. So that means time and choice. And when you overwork yourself or you're constantly thinking about work, it doesn't feel like a choice anymore. It doesn't feel like you have any time. You resent your work, or vice versa. You resent anything that takes time away from your work, your family, your friends, your health. However, you don't have to throw all of your high earning potential away. What you want to do is to understand, what is that number for you and what you're not willing to trade for money. If you had the best relationship with your partner, where you felt true partnership, love, affection, how much money could someone pay you to take that all away and give you a transactional relationship where you don't feel supported? And another one is What if you had this thriving health, an amazing relationship with your body? You loved it. You were able to do so many fun things that you want to do with people, without people. You're feeling like you're in the prime of your life. How much money would you take in exchange for feeling uncomfortable, to have a not so great relationship with your body, unable to move with ease in these prime years of your life? These trades wouldn't work for you. So instead, you will want to implement spiritual high performance strategies that help you scale your life, scale your fulfillment, take your health to the next level with your money. You just need to make a few changes, and I'm going to share these with you. And they're pretty simple. It's what we work through with our clients, and also what I do for myself, so that we all have, and I have, pretty unique lives, right? That we love for ourselves. So the first one is to really increase your skills. If you're not working on something that you care about, you're just going to count the dollars. Increase your skills in an area that you think is worth the time and investment that you're putting into your work. And you will find that you're happier to do more work, and you actually have to hold yourself back. This, coming from a healthy, empowered place, is a good thing. Second, constrain your hours. If you're working all hours of the day and evening and into the weekend, I know it's not going to be easy to do, but the truth is that you're sacrificing higher level thinking through your life energy. Instead of constraining yourself to think at a higher level to solve problems and make faster, more accurate decisions, you're buying time from your life to just work more instead at all the hours. The third is to create a community. If you're feeling isolated and like you just want to hide, you need to do the opposite. High achievers on the path to burnout and unfulfillment don't want to show others that they don't have it all together. They want to be the strong ones. And the biggest thing they can do, and the simplest thing they can do, is to be honest about what's happening. It's the place where you just lay it all out there. Go to your community and be real. Whether it was my financial situation, my stress, my relationships, none of it got better until I was honest with myself about what I wanted and where I was. And it's okay to not beat yourself up even while you're being honest, right? It's just being accepting and open with who you are. Everything that you have in your life, whether you feel a little bit of shame or embarrassment about it, is completely valid. Fourth thing is to get support. So many clients I talk to tell me in their very first session, I wish I started this coaching earlier. Why? Because in the experience of coaching, they relax, they find relief, they see a path forward, and then they believe that what they want is possible. And it's a paradox, because the very people who try to hold it all together often wait longer than what's helpful to ask and then invest in support. They try to save their way into becoming the most wealthy version of themselves, instead of seeing that it's when they've invested in themselves that things have changed. And it could be a coach, a childcare provider, a school, or an assistant. I have so many examples of how, for myself, support has been the very thing that has catapulted me into a next stage of impact and growth. Not because I had all this money, but because I became the person who could figure out how to pay for the investment and make the investment worthwhile. You become the resourceful person. And one more thing I want to address outside of these skills is, if you're thinking, what about starting a business versus staying in corporate? Which should I choose? My answer would be both. I do not think you have to do just one, and you don't know what it's like unless you do it. But this is the answer for me, and it isn't the answer for everyone. As someone who thought I had the worst corporate situation to someone who feels now that they have a unicorn job at the same company, I can tell you that just changing jobs is not always the answer. I did want to quit when things felt too much. I was burning out. I was sick. Everything was a crisis. I was the person who had to clean it all up, and I didn't love it at all. Yet, staying forced me to think about how to change the relationship with work and how I work. I did change roles. I didn't change companies. I realized that even if I were to start a business, I would take my overworking, people-pleasing self everywhere I would go. So if I wanted to truly create impact and coach from a place of helping others with their lives, I wanted to do it with me first. And the life stage and your values matter. This is another point. Finding fulfillment will also look different for you depending on your life stage and what you value. I had 2 younger kids, was about to buy a house. I wanted stability when I was making these initial changes. I didn't want to give up the income of the corporate job while I also did my creative coaching work. I didn't know how long it would take to build a business. I wanted to invest a lot into me and my business in terms of learning a lot about how to coach, how to build a brand, how to just develop all of these skills that you probably are seeing and witnessing today. Time was my true choke point, not money. So why not earn more money to solve the time piece? That was my thinking. So fulfillment was doing the work I wanted to do. So I made a change to the corporate work so that it was more aligned with my passions. I was doing strategy work, and even though I was good at it, hello, McKinsey, I wanted to impact humans. So I switched to learning development with a specific focus on sales. And all of this works for me and still does. I have multiple interests though. So feeling so supported in my corporate work, they know I have this coaching business, while also being able to feel that I can live a more creative life based on my own calling and the spiritual achievement work is a good balance for me right now. And I don't have a life that looks like anyone else's. And the biggest learning around fulfillment for me was that being an outlier is okay. And I constantly remind myself of that. You won't have a life that looks like anyone else's as well. So creating that next part of your journey, whether you leave or stay, is going to be an individual decision. You don't have to rush your journey. You also don't have to slow it down. You can ask yourself, though, if you're following someone else's timeline or your own. One of the best things about this next part of your journey, and this is the last thing I'll say, is that you will develop more self-trust. You will learn who you are outside of your work, and you will also get to be way more fulfilled in the process of achieving your next big goal. It will not be dependent on a company or an organization. Trusting yourself and your intuition is learning what's important to you and why, what you stand for, who you are. You get to develop the skills that help you grow your entire life, including your work, without feeling like you're sacrificing everything in the process. Just like we talked about before, you can have exquisite health as you scale your earning potential. These are the skills that matter no matter what role you take and where you go. And it will be the thing that helps you predict more accurately how fulfilled you will be in this next role. So if you're ready to build these skills and more, this is exactly what we work on inside a Spiritual Achiever coaching program. You will learn everything from leadership to embodiment practices to high performance strategies, tools that help you lead and live with more confidence, with more clarity, and with a lot more calm. And if you want to get started, you can apply today at mayemson.com/contact, or you can go to the show notes at mayemson.com/231 and watch the free training on how to stand out and lead, which goes into a little more detail on the spiritual and high performance strategies to achieve both time and financial freedom. All right, my friends, that is it for this week. I hope you have an amazing week, and I'll talk to you next time. Thanks so much for joining us this week on Own Your Best Life. Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts so that you'll never miss a show. And while you're at it, can you please rate and review on iTunes? I would so appreciate it. Share it with a friend, take a screenshot of it, and tag at May Empson. This helps continue to get the word out. For more show notes and resources, check out www.mamson.com. It'll have all the links to everything you heard here today. Thanks so much for listening. It's time to own your best life.